What's up, Nicole?
Hi.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Perfect.
So I was just giving your introduction, just saying that you're an all-around boss, um, staffing executive at Robert Half. You manage a team of accounting and finance consultants.
Yeah,
Your background is you got your business degree and a minor in marketing at Boise State University.
go
And
Broncos.
go Broncos. You love to bake cookies, find new trails to hike with your mom, cook family dinners, and you like to hang out with your friends and your pets. I say
Mhm.
that's a pretty nice resume there.
Yeah.
So Nicole, thanks for joining us. We're really happy to have you, and I think this is awesome for teens or just anybody who wants to watch this and learn a little bit more about what you do, who you are, and if they have questions. If you guys have any questions about work, resumes, how to become a good candidate. I think Nicole's heard all the questions probably at this point, so you know your way around those questions. So let's just get started. What is a staffing executive?
Um, well, it's kind of, depends on the company you work for, but for Robert Half, what I do is we have a couple different titles. I started as a staffing manager, and then I moved over to a staffing executive. So what it basically entails is I do both recruiting for accounting and finance consultants as well as marketing. So I market out to clients and then I also manage the clients. So it just kind of encompasses the whole, I guess, staffing um, role. So we call it full cycle recruiting. And then I kind of have that management aspect, which is, I guess, where the executive part comes in.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that's a nice title to have. Executive sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, those worst titles.
um, so how'd you get to where you're at? Like I guess you started out with a different title and worked your way up to executive, but
Yeah.
talk me through your time as I guess working at Robert Half.
Yeah, well, I was going to say before I worked at Robert Half, I worked in retail for about 10 years. So I learned a lot of that management and sales side. So I actually had a friend who worked at Robert Half who had kind of talked to me over the years about, I really like the relationship building aspect of the role. So that's what really drew me to Robert Half is to be able to build the relationships with clients and candidates. So the first 9 months when I worked at Robert Half, I was a staffing manager, like I said, and I worked on the temp end. So I worked to find temporary candidates, temporary roles. So we would market out to clients and build that relationship to establish needs. And then we would also recruit candidates who were who were unemployed, looking for accounting and finance roles. So I guess, and then moved into this role where I actually hire on full-time permanently employed accounting and finance professionals to work for Robert Half. So they work for Robert Half and under me, and they work on project roles for my clients.
Um, Really quick because you touched on temporary work and then also full time, and we'll get to this question that just came in. But what's the main difference between who you're looking at for a temporary job and for a full time job?
Well, I would say, I guess the main difference is just with mine, I offer them a full-time permanent role. So you can technically be unemployed and join the SPS program that I'm in. But where Robert Half is kind of most widely known is that they do the temporary placement. So if you are unemployed looking for a role, that's really where we thrive, both on the office end, so office administrative roles, as well as accounting and finance roles. But there's not really anything, in particular that would separate yourself. There's a lot of times where I'll hire accounting and finance professional who is unemployed. Maybe they just got laid off, or a lot of times we'll get people moving from California to Idaho and they move without a role.
Hmm.
So they kind of come over and they might just be in between jobs.
Hmm. And I guess a follow up would be, is there out of box skills that you look for in a candidate? Great question, by the way.
I would say yes and no. For my particular role on the salary professional service end, The main skills I look for outside of just the traditional accounting and finance skills is a big personality fit. So you have to be a little bit more outgoing than maybe your traditional accounting role, because you are going to interact with clients. You're going to kind of market with people a little bit more than you might in a traditional accounting role, because you are coming in as like a consultant with a little bit more experience. So I would say that like those soft skills are actually a little bit more important than some of the hard like accounting and finance skills that you'll look for sometimes.
And do those temporary roles, another great question, do those temporary roles turn into permanent roles?
Yeah, so a lot of times they do. I would say especially with the market. So I've been here with Robert Half a little over 2 years, and since I've been with Robert Half, the unemployment market has been pretty low. Obviously, it's a little bit inflated right now, but when it comes to accounting and finance, it's still pretty low. So a lot of times clients will use us as kind of that person that transition into the role. So I would say it's kind of depends on the role, but I would say 60% of our temporary roles turn into permanent roles. So we do a temp to hire option where after a certain amount of hours or a certain amount of time frame, the client can convert that candidate over to be their full-time permanent. So a lot of times our candidates then become our clients.
And there's no formula for that, like in terms of the hours, like it probably depends on what the position is.
Yeah, there's no formula. It really just depends on the role, because we market to a lot of different clients, and it just depends on what that particular client is looking for. Some people really just need that interim support, like they're behind when it comes to month end or year end. And then a lot of times, they have an open seat and they're struggling finding the candidate on their own. So the client reaches out to Robert Half, and then we find them somebody who's immediately available, and then they just turn into a really good cultural fit. They have the right skill set, and then they also fit well with the team, so then they'll convert over.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Dave, glad you got that swag, man. Thanks for chiming in last
All
time.
about the swag.
That's all. The swag is great. These hydro flasks are amazing. And so you kind of answered that question. Is there what's the quickest you've seen somebody go from temporary to permanent?
I would say, one time we did put a candidate out the first day and the client was like, I want to convert them. So actually moved over to our permanent division where they just booked it out. Because we have, Robert Half has about 8 different umbrellas under them. But we have here locally, we have the Robert Half Finance and Accounting Permanent Division, the Account Temps Division, the office team, and then my SPS, which is under Account Temps. Probably said that all too fast. But a lot of times when a client wants to convert a candidate that fast, we move it back over to the permanent division because they have a 90-day guarantee. Where usually on the temporary end, we like the client to try out the candidate for at least 90 days before they convert, so that they get a good feel for the environment and skill set, because it is more than just skill set that makes somebody a good fit for a role.
And maybe for, let's say somebody hypothetically is watching this and they're applying for a job at Robert Half, or they're just applying for a job in general.
Yeah.
What do you think makes, and whether it's, because you touched on soft skills, and I might ask you to expand a little bit on what soft skills are, because I don't know that everybody knows what a soft skill is. What do you think are some traits that somebody has that would make them be attractive to somebody that's hiring?
For me, in my particular role, when I'm recruiting for candidates, I actually prefer to see a little less tenure. So when I go to hire like a staff accountant, if somebody's been in a role for 5 years and then another role for 5 years, they're not going to be quite as good a fit for my role, because my role has a lot of change. Where in my particular role, if somebody's been with the company, for 2 years, 1 year, 2 years, I'm okay with that, because it shows that you're able to kind of quickly step into these roles, learn new skills, and do things like that. But I will say a lot of times clients still to this day really look for tenure, which I know is a little bit harder to find. But tenure is only about 18 months. So if you have a role and you're in that role for 18 months, you're technically considered to have tenure. So it still looks good on a resume, but we do look for that. We look for those time spans, and just like variety in roles, and really being able to explain what you did in the role. Like if you just have that you were a staff accountant or accounts payable person, we want to know the detail that's within that. And some people might hate me for this, but I will never read your cover letter. I'm only gonna look for the stuff in your resume. I don't read your cover letter.
Is that's news to me.
Yeah. I think it's
But
just because I'm a recruiter though. Like I see so many resumes a day. So I'm truly looking when I'm gonna initially reach out to a candidate, I base it off of the hard skills and what's on your resume. So
okay.
that's what I'm gonna look for. I don't read the other fluff because I've got, 30 seconds to 2 minutes to look through your resume and decide if it's gonna be a good fit for the role or not. And that's probably most recruiters or HR, to be honest.
I was going to ask that. Is that kind of like standard now in terms of like just going straight to the resume and looking like keywords, or how do you process a
Yeah,
resume?
I would say it is. One benefit to using a recruiter is that we don't use the artificial intelligence to kick resumes out. That's one thing where we always tell candidates, you do have to it is a little bit harder to apply for roles nowadays because you do have those keyword searches. And then if you don't fit those certain keywords, you get kicked out. Where when you apply for Robert Half or you send me your resume, I'm the artificial intelligence. I look for those things. So that's why I do look for keywords. I look for dates. I look for titles. I look for skill sets. I really like when people list their top skills at the top of a resume because that's right where my eye goes, initially. So being able to see some of your top skills right off the bat is going to make me much more apt to, reach out to you or notice that you have the skill set I need. But the cover letter just kind of takes more time.
I feel like the more I get your answers, the more questions I have.
Yeah.
But we have one that came in. So like, I want to ask this one. What do you look for in a resume? I think that's $1 million question right now.
Well, and I will say, I think for my particular role, I'm going to look for something different than a different recruiter because I'm looking for somebody who wants to choose a consultant role. I don't offer that, one role that you stay in I offer you a role that you could stay in for 5 years, but within that role, you will work with multiple different clients in multiple different industries and multiple different skill sets. So I'm not looking for that traditional candidate who wants to grow with a company in that set standard way.
Mhm.
But I would say, the main things I look for on a resume is pretty clear and concise. I want the top skill sets at the top of your resume. That's initially where I'm going to look and what's going to catch my eye. And then, 5 to 10 years of experience and just one page. I think once you get to 2 or 3 pages, really wordy, it makes it a little bit harder when a recruiter or an HR person is, sifling through resumes, every day. You're going to look for those key points. So I always like, say if you have a staff accountant, I like bullet points under it with, a couple of your main things. And then, how long you were there. A lot of people will take out dates. And you can say 2 years, you can say 3 years, but I think that you should put the dates that you were there so that somebody knows, the amount of time that you were there, especially since 10 years, 18 months. It's important that you're able to show that you can stick with roles. Does that kind of answer your question?
It does. It does. So I guess one hypothetical question that I have is if you were to look at a resume, they look like a good candidate, but you were confused or unsure about something that they had on their resume, would that disqualify them? Like if they're not
No.
clear or
No. So I like to think that I'm pretty lenient when it comes to people. If there's anything, and like I said, my role is a little bit different because I do work for a staffing agency. I am always looking for candidates, for my clients. If there's anything on your resume that interests me, I'm going to call you or reach out to you. So even if you don't feel like I tell people all the time, apply to roles that you're not qualified for. Always apply because a lot of
shoot
times
that shot?
you'll find out that you're the perfect personality fit. I hear more times than not that people apply to roles that they didn't think they were qualified for and they wound up getting it because they're honest and then they want that growth, they want that exposure, they want to be able to grow. Like showing that to a client is, a really good thing. So I always tell people, apply even if you don't feel like you hit all the boxes. And I guess I kind of lost my train of thought. What the
No,
beginning
no, no. That's
was.
yeah. You're saying shoot or shoot. and
Yeah.
you don't know,
Oh
you may
yeah.
be a
So
good fit. Yeah.
if there's anything on the resume I see, I'll usually call. Like if there's, I don't want to call them red flags, but even if there's something where I'm not sure if it kind of fits what I'm looking for, but then there's something else that might, I'm still going to call, because I think that, if there's anything that remotely fits the role, it's worth an additional conversation.
Yeah. What's up, Ale? Thanks for the thumbs up. Um, so hypothetically, I'm going to ask like all these hypotheticals.
Yeah, no, they're good.
Let's say it's a good candidate. You call them and you get a voicemail, and the voicemail is like, "Hey, how's it going? Oh, hey, sorry, I can't hear you." And it's like one of those like
Oh.
those. Are
I do
you
hate those, but I won't hold it against you.
okay? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, like I said, I depending on the time of year, right now is obviously a little bit different, but I'm usually reaching out to, 40 plus candidates and clients every single day. So, I'm getting a lot of voicemails. I'm talking to a lot of people. They're all different personalities. They're all different skill sets. Where I feel like that's what makes me understand what I might want more. And it also helps candidates or clients get that experience as well. If you are applying for roles, always answer your phone, always check your voicemails. I will say something I do get frustrated with is so many people's mailboxes are full.
Mm,
Empty out your mailboxes.
okay. Good advice. Good
Yeah.
advice. But it sounds like you're pretty benevolent, or you like to give people the benefit of the doubt when
Yeah.
ultimately they're applying, and from your side, you're also looking to fill positions. So it's a mutual thing. It's almost like I don't know. I always think of like applying for schools or applying for jobs. It's almost like courting.
Mhm.
So you have to meet in the middle, but you also have to know that you have to offer something to receive something, and then you also kind of have to put on your A game. How do you? So here's another question: how do you know the person is a right personality fit?
Like I said, it depends on what I'm recruiting for. If I'm recruiting solely so there are a couple different options. So I can recruit just to solely hire to Robert Half with no project in mind. Right now it's a little bit different, like I said, but there are a lot of times where I hire a consultant or a candidate onto Robert Half, and I don't have anything lined up for them. Like I just know that we're going to be able to find them a role. And a personality fit for that is kind of like what I said. I look for somebody a little bit more outgoing. Your traditional accountant, it depends. I like to find the untraditional accountants, the one that, kind of wants to interact with people, wants to continually learn and grow. I feel like you kind of have to have that hunger for knowledge, to want to be able to learn new skill sets and continually grow. If you want a little bit more of like, I don't want to say stagnant because that's not good, but if you want to, get a role and stay in that role for 5 to 10 years, that's not going to be the right personality fit for my particular role. But there are clients where, I worked with a client and all they cared about was tenure. They wanted somebody who had been in a role 5 to 10 years and wants to stick with it, where if I was hiring for that particular client, I would tailor that personality fit to that particular client or role. Now that I mainly recruit for myself in my program, I usually go for a little bit more of like an outgoing and go-getter kind of personality trait.
So if somebody's applying, let's say, and I think this is, so you're speaking a lot to being a recruiter and what the positions are that you're trying to fill. How does somebody know in terms of this is the right type of job for me? Let's say, because you are looking for somebody outgoing, and maybe what you're looking for in a personality fit or just like a hard skills fit is different than like a maitre d' at like bougie restaurant downtown or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So how does somebody find, is that in the job description? Is that something that's just kind of like an unspoken known or something like
Yeah,
that?
I think that is something that's a little bit harder in today's world, because I do think we find it all the time. Because so when I worked on the temporary end, somebody would fit the job description to a T, and they're like, they're just not a personality fit. And so it is really hard because that's not something you can read in a resume or read in a job description. And that's where I think, bringing a recruiter in, like whether if you're a client, looking for a candidate, or you're a candidate looking for a job, it's nice to be able to bring somebody like myself with Robert Half, or I know there's a lot of different recruiting agencies. It's nice to be able to bring a recruiter into it because it helps alleviate on both ends. The client's going to tell the recruiter what kind of soft skills, which is, you know, personality fit, things you don't see on a resume, that they're looking for. And then the candidate in turn, you know, has met with the recruiter, and then they do that matching. Because like I said, when you're applying online and, you know, just sending your resume out, you're getting sifted through on this artificial intelligence. They're not going to see that you might have that personality fit. So that's where I think that it is just hard for anybody who's searching for a job or hiring for a role. Those aren't things you're going to find on a resume or in a job description, like I said.
So I guess it's your situation isn't the standard for, like, in terms of the people that you see or the job application process, but it is something that people have to, like, I mean, in terms of the no cover letter, right?
Yeah.
Or what would you say is just safe practice for a blanket statement as general as you can get for somebody that's out there looking to get into the market right now?
Yeah. So if you're applying for a role at all, and this is different, you know, if it says put a cover letter or do these things, I definitely think you should follow all those things. Because I've talked with clients before, and they have, you know, taken candidates out of the running just because they didn't do exactly what the directions said. So in my particular role, I don't ever say, you know, do a cover letter. But I think when you're applying for a role, it's really important to, you know, read every aspect of it. You know, do they want a cover letter? Do they want to know more about you? Do they want you to fill out all the things? We're really showing them that you can take the time to do everything that they're wanting, because, or answer all the questions, and really take your time with it. Learn about the company before you do these things. Because if they're going to ask, you know, what drew you to the company, and you haven't even researched what the company is about, I think it's just a matter of taking that extra initiative to try and show your personality, or try and show your commitment through your application. And I think that will get you a lot farther. Always follow up. If you know the hiring manager, or if you have the company name, like, you know, maybe not the next day, but if you haven't heard anything in 3 days, give the company or give the hiring manager a call and say, hey, did you receive my resume? Or send a follow-up email. I think that shows a lot, because even if they did and maybe they kind of didn't really take a second look at your resume, that will cause them to take a second look. Or they'll be like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I saw your resume, I wanted to give you a call. It'll help remind them. I think that the follow-up is probably the biggest thing when it comes to applying right now, because people are getting bombarded with resumes. Recruiters are, hiring managers are, with everything going on. That follow through is going to get you a lot farther than you think. Adding them on LinkedIn, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Man, I have so many questions that I know we're like nearing time, but I want to ask a couple more. What's your stance, or what's a remark that you'll make in regards to maybe not lying, but like exaggerating on a resume? Do you have any thoughts?
I have a really hard time with that. I feel like you should very much be honest on your resume. You know, in Idaho, you're allowed to ask salary, and I do ask salary when I'm hiring. It's not something you have to disclose. You know, in like Washington, Idaho, California, you can't ask that. But I think that, you know, if you lie on a resume, it just kind of already disqualifies you before you go in. Because I've seen resumes, and it's people I've worked with before, or people that I can find in the system. You'd be surprised what you can find on the internet or in somebody's database. And so a lot of times you can get caught in that, and that's going to automatically kind of disqualify you, in my mind at least. And I would say it'd probably be the same for most recruiters or hiring managers.
And do recruiters and HR, do you guys communicate with each other? Like, hey, I got this application from somebody, and whether maybe they were in a job or a field that you might have a contact in, or do you just look at where their previous experience was and call that?
I don't usually reach out to, you know, like references or people, unless I maybe, you know, have like a extra reason to. Like there are, I mean, I will say Boise is very small. There's a lot of times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I know this person, or I know who they used to work with, and then I might reach out to them. But usually if I, see a resume, I'll just reach out to that particular person first, unless I find a reason to reach out to somebody else first. I feel like when people are applying, you should just go directly to the source. If I were a hiring manager, I'd just call the person who applied versus, try and speak to their previous person. I usually do references last. So I like to get to know them as a person first.
Awesome. So, all right, I don't want to, I feel like we could spend a whole hour just talking about resumes and applications.
Yeah.
We did touch on soft skills, and I just want to see if you can explain from your perspective what soft skills are for anybody that's watching this.
Yeah. So what I would say as soft skills is, like good communication, attention to detail, personality fit is something I stress a lot. Clients really stress it, and it's hard because you're not going to usually know, but a lot of times, like say they have a little bit more of an outgoing bunch and they want somebody who's going to, interact with the group, and kind of be able to engage in that versus somebody who wants to just kind of, heads down, work on the computer all day. Like I'll hear that a lot from a client. Like I want somebody who's heads down, focused and working, or, they want somebody who is going to interact with the office. They play games. Like I remember I met with one company and they're like, well, we really like to play like Nerf guns and shoot across the office sometimes. So somebody who would be okay with that. Just little things like that, like I said, attention to detail and communication are things I hear a lot with the soft skills. I just think little things that make you you. It's good to showcase those. And those can be in your skills when you list at the top of your resume. You can put some of those in there because like I said, it's hard to show those in a resume.
Awesome. So I do want to let your personality shine a little bit. So I heard through the grapevine that you cook. If you were on a cooking show, what would you make to win over the judges?
Ooh, that's tough. Well, definitely bake. I like baking versus cooking. So I would probably, it's funny because I like making cookies more, but I feel like I could be more creative when it comes to cupcakes. So I'd probably make some sort of, actually I make a really good gluten-free vegan carrot cake because I'm gluten-free and vegan. And so I feel like I would make that, and little cute little cupcakes, not the big cake,
Okay. Okay. And would you have a name for your secret recipe when it comes to those cupcakes?
Oh, no, just carrot cake,
Just carrot cake?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, maybe Kit's carrot cake. I'm a crazy cat lady.
Okay. Nicole's crazy cat lady cupcakes or something like that?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I like it. There's a lot of alliteration in that one.
Yeah.
All right. So we are coming up on time. Do you like to see people? Do you know Strengthsfinder?
Strengthsfinder. I actually have the book.
Okay. So
Yeah.
do you look at people's Strengthsfinders? And for people who aren't aware, it's a book where it lists your top 5 personality traits, and they divvy them up in terms of if you're you like to execute or you like to plan. I'm not exactly sure. There's personality and association sort of. Do you look at people's Strengthsfinders?
Well, I will say there was one time that the candidate gave me her whole printout of all her Strengthsfinder. And sometimes it's just a little bit too much information. You can just tell me what your strengths are.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that a lot of people will ask, what would you consider your strengths or what would you consider your weaknesses? And I think it's okay to be open about your weaknesses or where you're learning to grow. And then also in turn, accentuate on the strengths that you have as a person, because that really does set you apart.
Okay. And it looks like we got some Woo fans in the audience.
All right, it must have been the cat lady comment.
Yeah. 2 more questions. All right. Since you brought up the cat lady, what's your ideal cat lady date for you and your cat hanging out?
Oh my gosh, we just hang out in the garden all day. So I have a backyard. I call it the kitty backyard. And we just like to hang out there. My cats hang out in the little, they'd like to hide behind the plants and chase around. And it's fun to watch them chase little buggies in the in the air.
You guys then watch Aristocats and then
we like to sit by the fire and read,
Oh, okay.
They hang out behind the plants. I read, nice little vibe back there.
Nice. And we got Ale in here. So on that Strengthsfinder question, what are some of your strengths?
You know, I was gonna say, I actually was trying to think about that when you said that. I was like, I don't remember when I did it last. But I would say communication is probably one of my strengths. I don't know. I am a little bit more of a leader. So I kind of have those leadership qualities. So I guess I would consider that a strength. And I'm not like too shy in a situation like that. You know, when you kind of learn the situation a little bit more, those strengths kind of come out. So I guess communication and
Okay.
communication.
You did a great job communicating today. So Nicole, we're up on time, and I know that like your cats are waiting for you in the
Yeah,
yard.
very busy.
But I do want to ask you, so if you were to summarize, or not even summarize, but maybe leave a piece of information for everybody that's watching this, whether they're watching it right now or they're going to watch it later, based on, you know, what we talked about, or just something that you want to impart in terms of information for, considering it could be a young adult, a teenager, or just anybody watching this, what would you like to impart?
I just think, you know, right now, one, we have a lot more unemployment with, you know, everything going on right now. But I think it's really big to take the initiative. Like I said, apply for that job that you might not think you're qualified for, or, you know, take the time to put detail into your resume. You know, like a resume says a lot about yourself, and you're sending that out to people. And if that's all you can say, like just like take a step back and think like, hey, is this really like the only thing that I like want to see? Is everything about me in, you know, this resume, and do I feel like it represents me properly? And then, you know, take that chance, apply to that role, do that follow-up call. I think it goes a lot farther than people would think. So
That's
the
awesome.
initiative would be my big takeaway.
Initiative. I like
Yeah.
that. If there was one word to recap that, it would be initiative. I hadn't
Yes.
thought about that. It's a good one. All right, Nicole, thank you so much. This honestly, this really zoomed by. I was looking at my watch and I'm
I
like,
know. I was like, it's been 30 minutes already.
yeah, it's gone by really fast. So thank you again for joining. This was amazing and very informative. I learned a lot,
Yeah.
and hopefully everybody that watched it today learned a lot. So thanks again for asking your questions, everybody. Thanks again for answering those questions, Nicole. And yeah, all right, bye guys.
Okay. Bye.